Hello kids, Mr. Agee here. Our read aloud for today, Thursday, January 7th, 2021 is The Sunsets of Miss Olivia Wiggins, written by Lester Laminack and illustrated by Constance Burgum. It's published by Peachtree Books. The Sunsets of Miss Olivia Wiggins. "See what we have for you, Mama Olivia," said Troy proudly. "Grandma Angel and I brought a bunch of lilacs from your yard." Miss Olivia Wiggins didn't say anything. She didn't move. She didn't even blink. But slowly, quietly, she began to think. The Sunsets of Miss Olivia Wiggins. Miss Olivia Wiggins sits and looks at nothing and at everything, all at the same time. She spends much of each day just sitting with her hands folded in her lap, hands once strong, with nimble fingers that milked cows and gathered fresh eggs, hands that shelled peas, shucked corn, and quilted bed covers, hands that braided hair and soothed babies, hands that loved. Now those hands are fragile, frozen, folded in her lap. "Miss Olivia," the nurse spoke softly, "there's a lovely sunset this afternoon. The sky is streaked with pink. I'll move you over here where you can enjoy it." And he pushed her wheelchair to the west windows. Miss Olivia Wiggins had enjoyed many sunsets in her long life, but now she sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead, at nothing and at everything, all at the same time. She didn't move, she didn't even blink, but slowly, quietly, she began to think. She remembered a late afternoon so very long ago, when she was a little girl. She was playing in the yard when her papa came in from the fields. His stout arms swept her up in one smooth motion, and her long braids hung down to tickle his sweat-streaked face. "Look, Olivia," he said, "the sky is full of pink ribbons for my little angel." The nurse returned with two visitors. "Miss Olivia, look who's come to see you. It's Miss Angel and Troy." Angel leaned over and kissed Miss Olivia's forehead. "Hello, Mama," she said. "It's your girl, Angel." She took Miss Olivia's hand. "Do you know me, Mama?" Miss Olivia was still and quiet. "You see who came with me? It's Troy. You remember your great-grandson, don't you, Mama?" Angel asked. Troy stepped over to her chair. "See what we brought for you, Mama Olivia? It's a bunch of lilacs," he said. "Grandma Angel and I brought them from your yard." Miss Olivia Wiggins didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring straight ahead, at nothing and at everything, with her hands folded in her lap. She didn't move, she didn't even blink, but slowly, quietly, she began to think. She remembered a Sunday afternoon. Ned Wiggins came to call just as he had every other Sunday that spring. She and Ned took a quiet walk along the creek. They sat among the fragrant spring blossoms and tossed stones into the water. They laughed together and watched the afternoon sky fill with the colors of violets and lilacs. That evening, as Ned Wiggins was leaving, Olivia knew he was the man she would marry. Angel was rocking next to her mother while Troy stood by the window watching a family get out of their car. "Look at that tiny baby!" Troy exclaimed. "It must have just been born." Angel smiled and looked at Miss Olivia. "Troy, I remember the day you were born," she said. "Your Mama Olivia was there too. You should have seen her. She was so proud when they brought you out for her to hold. You were her first great-grandchild, you know." All the while Miss Olivia just sat facing the window, her hands still and folded in her lap. She didn't move, she didn't even blink, but slowly, quietly, she began to think. She remembered the cry of her first child as the midwife said, "It's a girl, Olivia." She wasn't sure if the golden glow that fell across the room that day was from the halo of a new angel or from the autumn sun. It didn't matter. It was a glorious day, and she decided to name her child Angel. Miss Olivia sat staring at the window as Angel sat quietly next to her. Troy stood by his great-grandmother humming a tune she had sung to him when he was very young. That song and the fragrance of rose water were his only memories of Mama Olivia before his visits to see her here. The three of them faced the west window, staring at nothing and at everything. Troy leaned against the wheelchair, humming as he gently rocked it back and forth. Miss Olivia didn't move. She didn't even blink, but slowly, quietly, she began to think. She remembered singing lullabies to each of her children. She sat in the white wicker rocking chair, cradling a tiny bundle, singing and rocking the precious one to sleep as afternoon faded to dusk. Visiting hours were ending, and the sitting room was filled with goodbyes and hugs. Miss Olivia sat staring out the window, and Troy rested his head on her shoulder. He talked about her house, the house his father had played in as a child, the house where his grandma Angel lived now. He talked about the front porch swing. It was his favorite place. All the while Miss Olivia didn't move. She didn't even blink, but slowly, quietly, she began to think. She remembered an afternoon not so long ago. Her house was filled with cousins, nieces, and nephews, her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. It was the last birthday she had at home. After the celebration, each one came by to say happy birthday and give her a hug before leaving. All but Angel. She and Angel sat chatting on the porch swing, and she took Angel's hand. The chains on the swing creaked responses to crickets and frogs as the sun cast long shadows across the yard. Angel squeezed her hand and said, "Happy birthday, Mama. I love you." Then she saw one of the last rays of sun catch Angel from behind and wrap her in a golden halo. Troy walked around the wheelchair to face Mama Olivia. He didn't know what to say. He had heard the grown-ups talking about her, saying that Mama Olivia didn't even know when people visited, that she didn't understand anything anybody said. But Troy and Grandma Angel knew better. He knew that Mama Olivia couldn't talk back, that she couldn't sing her song again, that she didn't smell like rose water anymore. But she was still his Mama Olivia. He knew that she was always there waiting for his next visit. He smiled into her eyes as the last of the sun caught the strands of his blonde hair and surrounded him in light. Angel stood up slowly. "I hope you enjoyed that sunset, Mama." Miss Olivia didn't say anything, but Angel was almost sure she saw a smile. "Did you see that, Troy? You do your Mama Olivia a world of good." Then the nurse came to get Miss Olivia for dinner. Troy stood quietly next to his Grandma Angel. He waved and blew a kiss as Miss Olivia was wheeled away to the dining room. All the while, Miss Olivia Wiggins sat perfectly still, staring at nothing and at everything, all at the same time.